Prop 50 was a very big disappointment, but it's important that people understand no one is coming to save you. You have to get off the couch and into the fight yourself. Grassroots activism is the future of taking back California.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Steve Hilton Show. What a great show today. I think you're going to really enjoy it. We've got Peter Navarro coming up with his unbelievable story of, as the title of his new book says, How I Went to Jail So You Don't Have to. That is something you don't want to miss. And then we've got some more reaction to Prop 50 from my friend Carl DeMaio. But actually, it's much better than reaction to Prop 50. It's what you need to hear right now. If you're in California and you're despondent about Prop 50 and you're thinking, well, what does this mean? And what does it mean for the future? And how are we ever going to win anything again in California? Carl has the answer. We've got a great conversation looking ahead to 2026 voter ID, how we're going to win. I promise you, it's going to give you the kind of energy boost that you need. And Jen Horn is here to talk about that as well, but also a really shocking story right here in California about child sex trafficking that once again exposes the unbelievable shameless hypocrisy of the Democrats who constantly lecture us on, how they're standing up for women and all this. Meanwhile, they have enabled and facilitated something that is so shocking. If you haven't heard this before, right now, the world capital for sex trafficking is right here in California, in Los Angeles, and it is the direct result of Democrat policies. So we're going to explain all of that. You don't want to miss it. But I want to start this week with a word that has become very fashionable since last week's election results. I talked about it a little bit on last week's show, but I really want to, deep dive into it this week, actually, because it's the word that's been associated with the election victories for Democrats in New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and the defeat of Republican candidates. And that word is affordability. You've heard it endlessly. Now, first of all, if you've been following my campaign here in California, you'll know that I've been talking about this for years, actually, because the focus of my work before I even became a candidate with my policy organization, Golden Together, was all about that. The very first thing that I looked at when I started digging into the policy issues affecting California and developing solutions was housing, actually, because housing is the number one component, whether you're paying a mortgage or paying rent. Mostly these days it's rent because home ownership has plunged so much because of high housing costs. So whatever it is, housing costs are the biggest component of your budget. It's the largest proportion. And so that's the very first thing I looked at when I was looking at the problems facing California, because high housing costs are actually the number one reason people are leaving California. That was over 3 years ago. And over the years, I've been looking at every single aspect of what is driving high costs here in California, because here in California, we have the highest costs in the country. And that's the point, that when we hear Democrats talking about affordability, it is a total joke, because of course it's their policies that make life unaffordable. And if you look at any kind of comparison on the factors that make up people's budgets and therefore drive the cost of living, and we can go through what the main factors are. It's housing, as I've mentioned. Then you have energy costs, electric bills particularly. You have gas, if you drive a lot, and certainly in California, that's a huge issue. You have groceries, and you have healthcare. Those are the main drivers. And for most of those, actually, the main reason that things are unaffordable is government policy. And the places where things are most unaffordable are places run by Democrats. New York, we've just seen. So Mamdani's whole campaign was about things being unaffordable, without mentioning that the reason they're unaffordable is Democrat policies. And now he wants more of the same policies, even more extreme, even more to the left-wing direction that caused the problem in the first place. How's that going to work? It's not going to work. And we'll see that. Here in California, actually, on every single one of those main drivers of cost of living, we are the worst in the country, worse even than New York. And again, it's driven by Democrat policies. Why is housing so expensive? Let's just go through them one by one. Housing, It's a classic example of supply and demand. There's not enough housing, so the price goes up when there's not enough supply to meet the demand. And so you're seeing all these things happening, that people who in their early 30s, for example, who in any kind of previous world, as I did back in the day when I was in the UK, you do okay. I started a business, made a bit of money, was able to buy my first apartment in London. That's completely out of reach for people now in California. So people in the same exact situation I was in, they don't have family money. I grew up working class. I had to earn all this money, but I earned enough to buy my own home when I was much younger. Now you can't. And so you've got people who should be in that position of getting their first, step on that ladder of opportunity, owning their own property, now sharing an apartment or sharing a house with 4, 5, 6 other people as if they were students when they're now professional people. It's just an absolute outrage. Why? It's because of Democrat policies. Number one, the climate policies that mean that they are against expand here in California. This is how it works. They're against expanding the developed area. So everything, they have this thing called infill development, which means that everything has to be built in the existing urban boundary. What does that mean? It means, of course, the price of the land goes up because there's more competition. And it means that the costs go up because they're layering on all these environmental regulations that make it 4 or 5 times more expensive to build anything in a blue state like California compared to red states like Texas or Arizona. It's just crazy. They just keep putting on the cost of building things, both in terms of restricting the land that can be developed and the actual costs of doing it. There's a whole bunch of other things that make it so expensive, which I won't get into, but it's, the labor cost is a big part of building anything. Of course, you've got the unions who fund the Democrat politicians that extract all these things, all these concessions that make the labor costs much higher than they should be. They call it project labor agreements. They file lawsuits to stop things being built. So there's a whole bunch of things that completely come from Democrat policies that make the cost of housing much higher. You look at the league table of where housing is most expensive. Rents, number one, California. New York, I believe, is number 4, something like that. You look at median house prices. California, actually, on that measure, I think is number 2. Hawaii is the most expensive. And again, New York is right up there. I mean, you look at the list, I think New York is 8th. The blue states, housing is much more expensive than in red states, and that's the direct result of those policies. Then you get into gas. Gas prices in California, the highest in the nation, higher even than Hawaii, even though we have abundant oil and gas reserves. Why is that? Because of their insane climate regulations. And again, in my campaign, I've gone through them because I'm going to reverse them so that we can get to $3 gas in California, one of my first pledges in this campaign. But it's the high gas prices are not accidental. They're not driven by the market. They're not driven by Trump. And the Democrats keep saying high costs are driven by Trump. Well, Trump's the president in, I don't know, Tennessee, where as well as in California, gas prices are much higher here than there. So it's obviously not to do with Trump. And the same, by the way, applies to all of these issues, because Trump is the president in all 50 states, but you have massive variations in the cost of living, and the blue states are much more expensive than the red states. It's because of their policies, the climate policies on housing, certainly on gas, certainly on electric, because now in the blue states, it's all about wind and solar, and of course, they are more expensive and less reliable, and therefore you can't have electricity produced at the same rate. That's why in California, the electric bills have doubled in the last 10 years as they've switched away from affordable, reliable natural gas for generating electricity in favor of less reliable, unreliable wind and solar. Price goes up, and so on. You look at if you look at groceries, and there let's just be fair. Of course, there's a national and an international aspect to that, but it's made much more expensive in blue states by blue state Democrat policies. For example, minimum wage laws, labor regulations, all of these things make it much more expensive to run and operate a retail store, grocery store, whatever it is, in a blue state compared to a red state. So wherever you look, pretty much down the list of things that are driving costs high, and we haven't even mentioned water, again, because of the climate regulations. Insurance in California is a massive issue. For home insurance, that's because of their terrible policies on wildfire, where they won't manage the forest properly, so risks go up. So the insurance policies, either you can't get them at all or premiums are very high. even on auto insurance of cars. Why is that so high in California? I believe the highest in the country because of the crime wave. Because so the risks are higher because they won't fight crime properly. You got these thefts, catalytic converters being stolen, on and on. Wherever you look, when it comes to the drivers of high costs and why things are unaffordable, it's Democrat policies. That is the reason that things are so expensive. And so the answer to that, of course, and this is the thrust of my campaign, the main focus of my campaign for governor, you've seen me out there already, $3 gas, cut your electric bills in half, a home that you can afford to buy, and there's more. That's the centerpiece of my campaign. But unlike the Democrats who say these things, but won't be able to deliver it because it's their policies that are making it so expensive in the first place. So how will more of the same help? Of course it won't. I will be able to deliver it by reversing the policies that the Democrats have put in to make things so unaffordable in the first place. So this whole affordability story, I agree very much with people like my friend Vivek Ramaswamy, who said Republicans need to focus on this. First of all, I have been. But secondly, yes, we do, because we've got the right answers and we've got a really strong case to make against the Democrats on this issue that they seem to think is now their political issue to gain political advantage from. Totally the other way around. And if we're smart, we can absolutely hammer them on affordability because they are the reasons that everything is so expensive in America, in California, wherever they're in power. All right, it's a great joy now to welcome my friend Carl DeMaio. He is the founder of Reform California, member of the state assembly from down in San Diego, and an absolutely fantastic fighter for common sense in California. Exactly the antidote we need right now if you're feeling at all down after last week's Prop 50 result. Carl, you are indefatigable. I love that word. You are just constantly fighting for us. You're fighting for voter ID. We're going to get to that in a second. You're literally on the bus and your incredible bus tour that you've been doing for the last few weeks. I joined you for a small part of that. I just see the energy you're bringing to this. That's amazing. So I want to mainly talk about voter ID because that's our fight for the future. It's going to be so important for 2026, for my race, for everybody's race. But before we get to that, just quickly your take on last week, Prop 50. What do you think?
Well, it's disappointing. It's a devastating blow to our ability to fight and flip seats in California. But let me tell you why Prop 50 is actually a reverse compliment. Gavin Newsom and California Democrats know that the voters are moving away from them. They know that Latino voters in particular have moved to the center and the right. They know independent voters are not happy. Even a third of Democrats in the latest polling say that the state is on the wrong track. And so they have two choices. Number one, they can fix the problems. Yeah, they're not going to do that because they're held captive by their extreme far left socialist base, the types of which support people like Mandami in New York. They want Mandamis in California. And so the only other option, if they're not going to solve the problem and restore the support that voters would have in them, they've got to manipulate the lines of the districts. So Prop 50 was a very big disappointment. We also have to understand that the Republican Party of California did not effectively fight Prop 50. And so we cannot assume that someone is going to save us in the state. The Republican Party is not going to save us. No one's galloping in from out of the state to save us. But we can save ourselves. Grassroots activism, I believe, is the future of taking back California. Having good candidates like you and so many others running for statewide office, running for local office, that is crucial. And if we build this ecosystem of change agents and we all support each other and work hard, I believe that California is savable. And that's why I'm urging people, don't flee, stay and fight. In 2026, we can really get a massive turnout of Republican and center-right voters, independents, if we get voter ID on the ballot. Voter ID is very motivating. It's the closest thing you're going to get to having Donald Trump on the ballot in California. And as much as the Democrats and the media and even many Republicans badmouth Donald Trump, He absolutely turns out votes of independents, blue collar Democrats, Latinos. And so getting voter ID on the ballot isn't just important because it's the right thing to do and that we want to restore public trust and confidence long term, but it's also a huge motivating factor for turning out our base in 2026, a midterm election. And if we get it on the ballot, I do believe that races like the governor's race are absolutely winnable.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I've been with you from the start on this, for all the exactly same, exactly as you laid it out there. It's right in itself, and it's overwhelmingly supported. And it's the way that we actually get the vote out. And I always make this point that with my race, but it's true for all the other statewide races as well, which is that this idea that this is such a Democrat state that Republicans can't win is simply not true. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy to win. Of course not. It's very difficult. Got to work very hard. That's why I am working very hard. So are you. You know, we're out there fighting every day, like traveling the state. It's exhausting. I saw that video you made, during the, in the last couple of weeks, and late at night, and you just keep going. But that's it. That's what we've got to do. And there are enough Republican votes in California to elect people statewide. Their votes are there. We just have to get them to show up for a governor's race, for an AG race, for all the statewide races, and of course at the state legislature in a midterm year when typically the turnout is lower. If we can get that turnout higher, then we win. We really do. It's really straightforward. And I mean, every political expert you talk to, they always say it's all, especially in a midterm year, it's all about turnout. That's what it's about. It's not about persuading people. Of course, I want to persuade people because I think we got the right solutions, the common sense answers to, $3 gas and cut your electric bills and a home that you can afford to buy, all those things, right? Crime, homelessness, on every single issue. We've got the right answers, common sense, practical solutions. Of course, we want to persuade people. But in the end, we got to be realistic. It's about the turnout, and voter ID is central to that.
It is. And just so you know, we have not given up the fight against Prop 50. Obviously, there's litigation. It's a long shot, but it's a shot we have to take. Your litigation, other litigation. But more importantly, if we break the supermajority in 2026, which I absolutely believe we can do if we get a good turnout, we can stop the politicians from making Prop 50 permanent because they need 2/3 votes in order to put it on the ballot. And more importantly, by flipping those seats, we then have leverage in Sacramento once again. I also believe strongly that when we do pass voter ID, that when we clean up our voter rolls, when we have a better set of internal controls and integrity in our elections, that a lot of these seats that Democrats under Prop 50 think that they're going to get easily will then become competitive again because you have voter ID. So we are going to continue to fight in California. We've got a game plan, but it's important that people understand no one is coming to save you. You have to get off the couch and into the fight yourself. It's a grassroots movement that has to be created. And it's our job at Reform California and with candidates like you, Steve, to motivate these volunteers, give them a plan, give them great candidates to back, give them tools to use to contact voters, like our Votive app, which has the contact information of low propensity voters in your neighborhood. We will give you all those tools, but if you don't do the work, it's not going to happen. So what we're asking you to do is to sign up online at reformcalifornia.org and do two things. Number one, finish the signature collection. We have 500,000 signatures out of 1 million signatures that we need. So sign up online at reformcalifornia.org to help collect signatures. But number two, sign up to be one of our 26 for 2026 volunteers. In 2026, we're going to have 26 target seats statewide. And if we do well in these target seats, we don't just win those seats and break the supermajority, but in order for Steve Hilton and other state candidates to become victorious, they have to run up the score in those target seats. They have to win by a solid margin in each of those target seats. And so I'm asking volunteers to sign up and commit to canvassing in these 26 seats. Everyone lives either in one of these seats or within a 20 or 30-minute drive of one of these seats. Canvassing in the month of October, and you have to commit to making 26 personal conversations happen with low propensity voters on the list that we give you on the app Votive. If you do that, we are going to be able to turn out voters and persuade voters in a way that we've never had before, and it's better than TV ads. It's better than the dark money and the mailers and the junk mail. We need personal contact. Right now, we have 17,000 volunteers at Reform California collecting signatures. My goal is to grow that to 26,000 canvassers during the month of October of 2026. If each of them have 26 conversations using the specific list I give them of low propensity Republicans and independents that are winnable, we will make 700,000 conversations happen with low propensity voters. And I believe all of those voters, if we actually have a conversation with them, they will be inspired to vote. If we suddenly have 700,000 voters vote in this midterm that don't ordinarily show up, oh, game on, baby. Things become very competitive statewide and in these target areas. So that's our goal, 26 for 2026.
It's so thrilling. I mean, this is exactly right. It's brilliant. And the other thing that it emphasizes, which you and I have spoken about this, so you know that I'm committed, but I'm going to share this with everyone now, is that it's very important, therefore, that we have a common platform, that candidates are making the same. So we're not going out there with a million different messages, that we've got a simple point, like if you vote Republican at every level for every office, here's what you get. Here are the simple policy points, talking points, a shared commitment and a shared set of very simple things that we're going to do for you when we flip this state and break the supermajority, elect people statewide. It's really important. And what I love about what you're doing is that you're stepping up and leading. You're leading this effort for the and you've been doing it for many years, but now you've got this incredible infrastructure with Reform California, and it's so exciting to see you lay it out like this.
Well, on that common platform and the golden ticket, if you will, for the Golden State,
Yeah.
we are going to be launching our second round of handwritten letters. The first round was for voter ID, and of course, we weren't expecting it at the time, but Prop 50 came along, and so we also did inserts for no on Prop 50. So everyone got a petition, everyone got a no on Prop 50 palm card. In mailers that were handwritten over the summer, we did 1.5 million handwritten envelopes. We haven't had that much grassroots personalized contact in California Republican politics probably since Ronald Reagan was governor. And more importantly, as we go into 2026, we're going to, instead of mailing out petitions, Steve, we're going to be mailing out the Reform California Plain English Voter Guide. And we've partnered for Latino outreach with California Latino Voter Alliance. And so we will be sending these nonpartisan voter guides with our slate of candidates endorsed to Republicans, low propensity Republicans, independents, and yes, Latinos. Democrat Latinos, independent Latinos will get this material in English and Spanish, and it will all be handwritten. We're going to do 2.6 million handwritten letters with the voter guides, because we're going to do 2 waves of drops. One will be the wave that arrives with your ballot, and the other wave will drop 10 days before the election, because we know, sadly, a lot of people don't vote till the end. And that handwritten letter is going to be crucial because it will break through the clutter in the mailbox. It's personalized and it has an impact. Finally, as part of our program, we have the voter guides handwritten. We've got the 26 for 2026 targeted conversations at the door. We also finally have our ballot harvesting program. It's called Barbecue Beer and Ballots, BBB. And what we're going to be doing is hosting these massive barbecue beer and ballot rallies up and down the state. But we're encouraging you to host your own backyard BBB. We will give you a checklist on how to do it. And what you do is you gather people together, you invite neighbors over, and you walk them through the voter guide. And you have a conversation about why California is in a mess and why they should consider voting differently this cycle. And so we are trying to make voting simple and secure, and having an easy to understand one-stop shop for the voter guide is going to be crucial.
I mean, it makes me feel really excited for next year. I mean, I've been excited anyway. I'm looking forward to fighting and dismantling this Democrat machine with the force of our argument that it's obviously time for change. We got to go in a new direction. But the fact that you've got all this in the works is just so exciting. It really is. I just want to dig into a couple of the numbers before we wrap up.
Yeah.
On the supermajority front and also on voter ID, and we'll end with that. On the supermajority, the 26 seats, What does it take? Like, can you just go into that a little bit deeper? You know, the Assembly, the Senate, how many we need to actually flip, sort of break the
Yeah,
supermajority?
last cycle I said we have a 2-cycle strategy to break the supermajority. We, as of last cycle, we had to get 9 seats in the state assembly, and we needed to get a total of 6 seats in the state senate. We've been able to flip 2 of the state senate seats and 2 of the state assembly seats. So now we're down to 4 state senate seats that we need to flip, and or 7 assembly seats. And we flipped those seats without a functioning Republican Party and without a lot of the money that the Democrats have. But we had good candidates. And this cycle, with the 26 for 2026 program, all we have to win are 7 assembly seats. And we have at least 18 assembly seats where I believe that it is absolutely possible for us to win in 2026 if we get good turnout and we get the independent voters to break our way. And that's absolutely possible. It is doable. And I'm seeing a lot of Latino majority seats where we're most competitive. So we've got candidates like Ed Delgado in District 60, who's in Riverside, who I'm so excited about, who can absolutely win that seat. And Democrats are taking it for granted. He's very much like Leticia Castillo, who won District 58, which is right next door, majority Latino seat. So when people say, oh, it's not possible, baloney. We can win seats like Leticia Castillo and Jeff Gonzalez in this cycle. They look exactly the same. We've got the same caliber of candidates. We just need a workforce. We need volunteers and activists to help us out.
So 7 in the Assembly, 4 in the Senate, and that ends their supermajority.
And I'm more confident about the Assembly because some of the seats that we can win in the Senate are actually not up this year. Because remember, they're 4-year terms, and so it's staggered. So our best shot to break the supermajority remains in the state assembly, but we're also going to be very active in state Senate seats. We're going to be very active in congressional seats. I do not believe that it's a foregone conclusion that we lose 5 seats in the House because of Prop 50. I actually believe that there's a way for us to pare down those losses and potentially even break even. So that's our commitment. We are going to fight even on an unfair map. We're going to fight with good candidates.
And we should just be clear that Prop 50 doesn't change the state legislature maps. It's just for Congress.
No,
Although
but
I'm sure
they got
want
the
to.
camel's nose under the tent. You know darn well that they want to gerrymander and rig those seats.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say. And of course, we'll be part of that. We'll be putting all the candidates on here that we want to get across the line, and I'll be out there campaigning for them. I've always said this, that I see this my race as it's, you know, I'm part of it. It's a team. It's a team that is going to do this. It's not just one person. And I've always said it's both horizontal and vertical. It's the other statewide candidates, and it's the legislature especially, but also we got to just elect Republicans at every level. And if we work together, it's going to make it each of us benefits from that, whatever race we're running. So the last one on the on voter ID, just back to the numbers on that. I mean, 500,000. It's not even a month yet, is it? Since you've been out there doing this.
So we started collecting signatures actively on October 1st. And within the first 2 weeks, we got 250,000. And then by November 4th, we were well above 500,000. And right now, I think we're probably around 650,000. But remember, the last 300, 400, 500,000 signatures will be the most difficult to get. The easiest signatures are always at the front. So I need everyone to continue to collect signatures. If you have not signed yet, go to the website, voteridpetition.org, and sign. Download, print, sign, and mail in your petition. And while you're at it, please request a volunteer kit at that same website, or go directly to voteridvolunteer.org, and we will mail you a petition kit. But what we need people to do is in the next 4 or 5 weeks, collect as many signatures as possible and then get them back to us in December. I'll be doing another round of our statewide tour for voter ID turn-in, signature turn-ins in December. And Steve, I'd love to see you at those events. You were amazing in the first round in October as we canvassed the state. We need all hands on deck to get the signatures by the end of the year.
Amazing. Look, I just want to say thank you. I can feel the audience. I can feel the energy because you bring it. And for everyone who's despondent over last week, of course, that's right. We don't want to kind of pretend that it wasn't bad. All that's true. But the only right response is to redouble our efforts and say, we're not letting that happen again. And this time we're going to go all out. And you are, and you've laid out and it's not just words, it's actions and infrastructure and really, really specific things that should give everyone confidence. It's absolutely thrilling. Um, Thank you, Carl. And I can't wait
Thank
to
you.
see you out there.
We're looking forward to it, Steve. Thank you so much, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Jen, it's great to see you. Not a great week for Republicans here in California or elsewhere. I talked about that in last week's show. But now we're a week on. I just want to, get your reflections on Prop 50, bearing in mind what we just heard from Carl DeMaio, which, of course, as we all agree, it was not the outcome we wanted. But I'm really excited about the fact that we're not just sitting around. Well, certainly me and Carl, we're not just sitting around saying, "Oh dear," like drowning our sorrows. It's exactly the opposite. We're actively out there with our plan to win next year. My race, all these other races. Carl's got this fantastic plan, 26 for 26. He was just talking about it, targeting seats in the Assembly and the state Senate, so we break the supermajority, an army of volunteers, specific conversations that we're going to help prompt around a common platform. I just want and it's very important, I think, for everyone to understand that certainly for my part, for Carl's part, and we've been working together closely, we are really fired up about next year. And so we have to have that attitude. But your thoughts, as we're now a week away from the Prop 50 vote?
My point is that we shouldn't be crying into our soup. I mean, this was already kind of an uphill battle with Proposition 50. There was a lot of money thrown at it, a lot of money from out of state thrown at it. This doesn't mean that it's the end of the world for Republicans in California. In fact, quite the opposite. I think we can draw some lessons learned from what went wrong with the No on Prop 50 effort. And I spoke to you about this, Steve, early on. I was worried about the No on Prop 50 campaign when they said we don't have to worry about people's feelings because we have facts on our side. And that is true. When you are out there campaigning, you do have facts on your side, Steve. But for Republicans to win in California, we have to touch people's emotions. We have to make people feel things. People in California, sadly, and I don't like to say it because I don't like it to be true, but it is. We're feeling the pain. We feel the pain of the cost of living here. We feel the pain of crime. We feel the pain of government overreach in our lives. And so when you connect with people emotionally, and we have the candidates like you that can do this, you know what? We start to win because people realize that there are individuals who are hearing us and communicating with us and want to fix things. And I'm actually more encouraged than ever listening to you, listening to Carl DeMaio, listening to some of the other candidates that are in various races, like our friend Sonia Shaw, and I'd say John Wagner for Secretary of State, all these other people who are running for office coming up. Nobody's crying and saying, oh, there's no chance. We need to call it a day. If anything, we realize that the opportunities are there. We just have to do a better job communicating and reaching people where they are, because there are a lot of problems that could easily be solved by the right person at the right time. And the status quo, they're not the right people at the right time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think in a way it's it's not the same at all, but it reminds me a little bit about the recall, the Gavin Newsom recall in whenever that was, 2021. And then people say to me, well, you couldn't do the recall and Larry Elder couldn't win and so on. And now some people say, oh, Prop 50, you can't. I think they're very different. Both of those, the recall and Prop 50, they're weird, very rushed, last minute kind of things where it's very difficult. It was very difficult for Larry. And in this case, because you've got this amount of money from the unions, whatever, because they're very good at just, piling on that Democrat machine quickly in that short space of time to get anything going. It's just difficult. And it's less, and particularly with this Prop 51, it's less about California issues directly. Of course, I tried to make it about that. We put out an ad directly connecting Gavin Newsom's failures with this vote and just had that simple emotional appeal. The people who brought you the highest gas prices, the highest taxes, homelessness, crime, the total chaos and disaster. Now they want more power to make it even worse. So we tried, but frankly, that was my company. We don't have the money to match at this point the government unions and all the rest of it. And the election itself on Prop 50, it's about some, redistricting and whatever. What's that got to do with my daily life? Whereas next year in the election, I'm going to make sure, Carl's going to make sure, we're all going to make sure it's absolutely about that. That this is a choice for whether you want $3 gas with me or $6, $7, $8 gas with 4 more years of Democrat one-party rule. Whether you want your electric bills cut in half, which I will do by reversing their crazy climate policies, or you want them to double again, which is what you'll get if you vote Democrat. Whether you want crime to continue to spiral out of control, homelessness to continue to be a national disgrace, whether you want the mountain of red tape that's strangling every business, particularly small businesses, to get bigger and bigger, or you want to cut all that back. That is going to be very, very simple and clear, the choice. And it wasn't really about that the last few weeks. I understand the kind of an immediate impulse to say, well, that was bad. Oh, now with like no choice. But it's really different. It's a really different election next year. And I think to those people who look at the national story and say, well, look what happened in Virginia and New York and New Jersey. Oh, what chance? Well, again, that's and then they look ahead and say, well, it's going to be a midterm election and Trump's not popular and tariffs and this and that. And the incumbent party in the White House always gets punished in the midterms. So you hear all that chatter. But I'm saying they haven't seen me in action as a campaigner. They don't know what's about to hit them. They really don't. I can't tell you all of my thoughts and plans, but I'm telling you, I'm so fired up about next year. And people say to me, oh, you've got a lot of energy, you're out. You've seen nothing compared to what I'm planning for next year.
Hilton is coming 2026, right?
It's going to be totally different, and it will unfold during the course of the year. And Carl laid out some of the plans as well from the sort of infrastructure campaigning point of view. But I mean, that's what has to happen to win. You've got to have the right message. You've got to have the right messenger. You've got to have the right mechanics underneath it all. And I really believe we've got that for next year.
And I really am so grateful for a leader like Carl DeMaio, who is stepping in where maybe the party isn't ready to go on this. I mean, he really is stepping in. He's getting candidates elected. He is getting letter writing campaigns going. He's people walking. I mean, I know you've been on his tour bus with him. I was traveling with Carl. This machine that he has created is the machine that has been missing in California. And here is something that is also look, let's just be real. Redistricting is not a sexy issue. It's not. Nobody understands it. Nobody gets how it impacts their daily life. $3 gasoline is a sexy issue. Having people show their ID to vote and secure our elections, that's more of an issue that people
it's huge.
in their hearts, right? And the polling indicates that that is extremely popular. And so I think when we get down to real life issues, there is such an opportunity next year. And I'll tell you, this week I'm at the Nixon Library doing a book event. I don't even know if you know Piers Morgan, but I'm guessing you must. And
very well. He's fantastic. Yeah.
So he's in town and he's got a brand new book out about wokeism. And I just read the book over the weekend so that I could do the facilitation. I'm going to be doing an hour-long Q&A with him at the Nixon. And Steve, what I thought resonated with me in this book, and it's just true, is that there is a resurgence of common sense that is coming back. And if candidates can communicate common sense, that is going to be a winning situation. That's what you're doing. That's what Carl DeMaio is doing. It doesn't have to be overt politics as per usual, which is really what this redistricting election was all about. It's very political, but it's about common sense. The wokeism stuff has exploded. The DEI stuff has exploded. All of this stuff that was thrown at us the last 5 years, people are done with it and they're ready for common sense issues. If we meet people where they are with common sense solutions, I have such high hopes for us. And plus this machine that Carl DeMaio is building in California, there is hope here in our state. And I love how you say it, and you say it best. The people of California that broke it, they're the ones that should be leaving, not us. We stay, we fight, and we stay connected to the game. And when we do that, we are going to start to see winning.
Exactly. Great. All right. Looking forward to that. It should be a fun event with Piers. He's fantastic. By the way, the last time I saw him, I did his show. And it was the most brilliant one. If you haven't seen the clip, you can find it on my social media. If you just Google X, Steve Hilton, Betty Yee. Because I went on Piers' show after the Katie Porter meltdown, talk about that. And he had Betty Yee. And it was that interview. She went before me and I was watching it. I was just getting ready to go on. And he asked her about the, biological men and girls in women's sports and all the rest of it. And that's when she she had her own meltdown talking about how she wanted do you remember that one, a gender neutral Olympics? You just
Let's get
think
that rolled out right now, please. Let's
amazing.
get the Olympic Committee on the phone.
But what was brilliant, because Piers really, she had obviously had no idea who she was dealing with. He's brilliant and relentless and a very, very fair questioner, but totally relentless. And also, this is the issue. I mean, almost more than any other, where he really knows what he's talking about, and he's been on it for years.
He's really done with all of this stuff that you're talking about. I mean, if anybody, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, anybody living in California who sees an elected official come out and say, we need a gender neutral Olympics. I mean, everybody's going to say, what are you talking about? This is, I think, what gives me so much hope is that I know the heartbeat of California. You know the heartbeat of California, and people are ready for someone to help us, and not these yahoos that are throwing mashed potatoes at their husband or laughing about how we used to protect women and now we don't even know what a woman is. I mean, it's just gotten so ridiculous that we've reached the breaking point, and we're ready for some massive change in California. It's coming. Do not be disheartened just because of a special election gone wrong.
And so now I'm funny enough, following on from the the gender neutral Olympics, there's a really serious story that we need to talk about. Um, and it's something that I've been talking to people on the ground about for a long time, actually. Now it's really broken through on the national level in a really serious piece in the New York Times. But
Yeah.
it actually comes from the same place, which is this extreme gender ideology that the left have been pushing here in California. And this is about sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. I don't know if people realize this, but right now, the world capital for child sex trafficking is California, is actually Los Angeles. And that is the consequence of specific Democrat policies. Honestly, there's no other way to put it. Tell us about the story and how it connects to their policies.
I was pretty shocked, actually. I was just reading through the news and actually discussed it on my program on Monday morning. The New York Times came out with a story that local KTLA Channel 5 in Los Angeles, the TV station, picked up and did an expose on it. And I'm glad that they did, because this is one of those stories that, because it is so unpleasant, I don't think a lot of people realize it's happening. I don't think it's obviously not the most fun thing to report on. This is a horrific story, but it doesn't get a lot of attention. And to put sunlight on this is the only way that we can beat it. So there is a 50-block stretch of Figueroa that is, as you mentioned, the sex trafficking capital of the world, right here in Los Angeles. And women and children, primarily children, young women under the age of 18, are being trafficked. They've put themselves or they've been compelled into the sex trade. And so a lot of the people who were involved in the story said, well, where are the police? Why are the police not getting involved if this is so well known? Well, lo and behold, it's Democrat policies that have been put out by the man that I call the purveyor of all bad ideas, who's making his own news this week because he is apparently the next in line to replace Nancy Pelosi in Congress now that she's not running again. And that's State Senator Scott Wiener, who put together SB 357, which decriminalized loitering for sex trafficking or for prostitution. And our buddy, Gavin Newsom, signed it. So it basically says if you're out on the streets loitering, dressed in lingerie, and people realize you are a prostitute, the police can't come in and arrest you, which is what they used to do. The LAPD had a division actually set up that would go in the hopes that they'd be able to rescue people who are under the age of 18 for engaging in this kind of prostitution. Well, the unit that was within the LAPD after this law passed was disbanded because there was no purpose for them, because they were not able to actually make these arrests after Gavin Newsom and Scott Wiener decided that it was perfectly fine for 16-year-old girls in lingerie to sell themselves to the highest bidder. So the LAPD disbands this group now, and now just regular LAPD officers have to manage this. So it really is getting no attention or really even law enforcement presence in this stretch because of Scott Wiener and Gavin Newsom, who put this into play. And this was all done because Scott Wiener said that this unfairly targeted Black and brown people and unfairly targeted the LGBTQ community. And to go back to our friend Carl DeMaio, who was with you earlier, he has always said that Scott Wiener has used the LGBTQ community as window dressing to pass his like borderline pedophilic bills that are going on where you attack these predator bills that attack children. And he uses the LGBTQ community to do that. I mean, it's disgusting. It's gross. And the fact that Gavin Newsom signed this bill into place when he's out there running for president, I hope there is a strong reporter or a strong candidate. Maybe it's going to be JD Vance or whoever it is who says, how can you say that you are for protecting women and children and the people, your constituents, when you signed a bill that actually puts young women primarily at risk and gets them killed? And now there's no protection because the police can't even go into these areas and do anything about it. It's a deep problem on so many different levels. And I applaud, and I never say this, but I applaud the New York Times for actually putting it in the spotlight.
Well, actually, I agree, but there's been, I've been made aware of this, for a while, and I've been talking to local organizations and pastors and so on who've been going there and actually trying to rescue these girls. It's so depraved. I mean, it's the most disgusting thing. You read the details in the story of, I mean, I don't want to, we've got to give some of the details, otherwise people don't realize quite how disgusting this is, which is that you've got these young girls under 12, some of them 30, young girls,
Babies.
and they are given a monetary target. You
Yeah.
have to earn $800 by the next morning, $1,200 by the next morning, whatever. And so they know how many sexual encounters that they have to engage in order to get the money. I mean, it's just unbelievable that this is just happening here in Los Angeles.
And that's just it. We talk about the state and it being such a great state to save. We have to save these children. And a lot of times people associate this with the border and the border being closed. Now people say, well, you're not trafficking kids over for the purpose of sex anymore. But this is happening not just with people from other countries. This is happening with our own kids, our own runaways. They get into this lifestyle because they think it's their only way to survive, and then they are trapped.
Yeah, I mean, the really disgusting part I'm sorry, it's all disgusting, but a huge proportion of them from the foster care system in California. So that's another government failure.
Exactly right. And so it's time to step in. It's also time to ask Gavin Newsom why he signed this bill in 2022. It's appropriate, as Scott Wiener wants to become the next congressional representative for San Francisco, to ask if this is what he wants to give the country with his voting power when he gets into the halls of Congress. These people need to explain themselves. This is not about decriminalizing. And I know they've given us all of these excuses about how certain people are going to be impacted by this, but what they've done is impacted the children, and it's time to stop. We have to have a line. This is not political. It's about right and wrong. It's about evil and good, and we need somebody to come in and reverse what they've done.
And it shows you how disgustingly, shamelessly hypocritical. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, just in what you just said there I mean, her sort of pathetic refrain, she's made a joke of it, oh, it's for the children. She keeps saying that when
That's
she
right.
does anything. It's her become over her career, her kind of signature line. It's for the children. And this is what's going on. And it highlights once again the absolutely extraordinary gap between what they say and what they do. And there's just a couple of other examples I just want to throw in before we wrap it up, Jen. I mean, obviously, we saw it last week with Prop 50, where they keep lecturing us on saving democracy, and they've just rigged our elections. We're seeing it this week with Newsom. You've got this climate conference in Brazil, and he's flying there to lecture everyone about climate change and preen in front of the world's, climate zealots about what a brilliant leader he is on climate change and all this. And, contrasting with Trump, who won't go to the conference, etc. Meanwhile, guess guess what we're now doing in California? Directly because of Gavin Newsom. This isn't even the legislature. This is Gavin Newsom directly shutting down our oil and gas industry in California. That's being done through executive action. It's not the legislature. It's him and his appointees at CalGEM, the Department of Geologic and Energy Management, refusing to issue permits for maintaining wells and expanding existing wells and drilling new wells so that we can maintain oil production in California. It's collapsed. Used to be most of our oil that we consumed in California was in state. Now the vast majority is imported. About nearly 80% is imported, including from the Amazon rainforest, right? He's literally going to the rainforest. We found out an amazing fact, which is that half the oil that is being drilled in the Amazon rainforest is now coming to California. Half. It's like, we say half. And
Half.
it's like, what are you talking about? So
Great,
I'm
can't
writing.
you let them all go to Texas so that we can
It's
go back to the
insane.
rainforest to destroy it? Perfect.
It's amazing. And I mean, I suppose it's not amazing because they're shameless liars and hypocrites, but just the staggering nature of the hypocrisy. And he's going there and no one calls him out. No one points it out. Well, I am. And I'm writing a letter to the head of COP, whatever it's called, the climate thing, saying, please do not allow Gavin Newsom to speak. You should not be giving this man a platform. He's responsible for half the oil, buying half the oil coming out of the rainforest.
Gosh,
So, and the idea that he's some kind of leader on climate change is a joke.
he's a joke. That is I had not heard that. That is just, I mean, you say it's funny, but it really, I mean, it is funny. But it's not. I mean, the guy is such a gigantic hypocrite, and they're so willing. That is so on par with what they do with that environmental movement. As long as it makes them sound and feel good, they don't care about the damage they've
It's
actually
about
done.
what you say, not about what you do. And that is the
Right.
story of all these Democrats. Um, and it's going to be a real theme in the election next year. They all talk about affordability, right? Giving us the least affordable state in the nation. It's on and on. Every single thing is just complete BS from top to bottom. We're going to expose it next year, and I'm going to really enjoy doing it.
I'll
Um,
be happy watching. I'm going to pop my popcorn now. I'm ready to go.
all right. Thank you, Jen. Brilliant to see you.
Thank
See you
you,
next
Steve.
time. Thanks. Joining us now to talk about his fantastic new book, I Went to Prison So You Don't Have to, Peter Navarro, who is also the senior counselor for trade and manufacturing in the White House. Your story is so amazing. I've got to tell you, I've loved everything you've done for so long. I remember the very first time I came across you, um, and it was right back in 2015. And I remember hearing the title of the book, one of the books you wrote, Death by China, and it just made me so happy. I thought, here's someone who gets it. I've been on that for a long time, but this new book is so amazing. Your story in the last couple of years has been so amazing. Just go for it. Tell us the story of the book, why you chose to write it, and why we all need to read it.
Sure. The title of the book is I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to, a love and lawfare story in Trumpland. Now, I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to is a tagline from the speech I delivered on July 17th, 2024 at the stage of the Republican National Convention when we were nominating Donald Trump for president. Now, what's funny about that is that was the night of the day I literally got out of prison after serving 4 months for a misdemeanor. I'm in with 200 felons, mind you, in a Miami federal prison. The misdemeanor I was charged and convicted with, Steve, had never been charged anybody because up until the time that Joe Biden took the White House, it wasn't a crime to do what I did, which is to say, as a senior White House advisor, refused to honor a subpoena from the legislative branch because of executive privilege. Wasn't a crime. So I wind up there. So the question is, how did that happen? And I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to, available on Amazon, by the way, is a signal that if they can do it to me, they can do it to you. So what I do with the book, among other things, is try to create this awareness of weaponization. Now, what's interesting, Steve, is that the very first chapter of the book, I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to, starts out with my infamous leg irons arrest at Reagan National Airport. I wake up in the morning, my fiance and I have breakfast. We're living right across the street, literally from the FBI. I'm going to Nashville out of Reagan National Airport that day to go do Mike's show. Life is sort of good, although I know kind of they're closing in on me with this phony charge. And we get to Reagan, and I walk with my fiance into the gangway, and I see Walter Giardina, the FBI agent who's the lead in this, with another guy. I turn around, there's 3 other armed FBI agents behind me. They converge, handcuffs, it's leg irons. I'm in a cell. I mean, think about that. The CNN had the story before anybody, of course.
Yep.
And I did live across the street from the FBI. In normal cases, you always are allowed to self-surrender, which is to say they could have just called me up and I could have went in and said, here I am. Could have spared me the leg irons, the circus arrest, the attempted humiliation of my fiance. It's like all of that. So why is this interesting? Well, it turns out, Steve, that this agent, Walter Giardina, who grabbed me, is turning out to be an incredibly important historical figure with respect to the broader arc of the weaponization of our justice system dating back to 2016 and extending all the way to present day. And Giardina, the guy who put me in the handcuffs and was responsible for the leg irons, it turns out that he was the agent who vetted the phony Steele dossier. Now, let me take you back to 2016, right? The Steele dossier, Christopher Steele concocted this fake dossier implicating President Trump in some phony Russia hoax. This dossier was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That's all fact. Fact is the day is long. The problem is that even though it was a hoax, it was this guy Giardina, along with another guy or so, according to whistleblowers, who vetted the dossier and said, yeah, this is actually true. Trump's in bed with the Russians. Wasn't true at all, but that's what Giardina said. And that set in motion Crossfire Hurricane, which was the whole Russia hoax investigation. That in turn set in motion the Mueller report. Meanwhile, Giardina, remember, this is the same guy who put me in handcuffs and leg irons, is involved in this Operation Crimson River, which was a license to hunt all sorts of Republicans, including President Trump and Vice President Pence. False allegation about somehow Egyptian money with Trump. It's crazy stuff. And getting forward to today, it's like the Arctic Frost J6 investigation. And so all of this stuff's coming out, Steve, about Giardina and the FBI. Senator Grassley's been releasing all sorts of information. And it all begins, in some sense, in the middle of this time period with me, because Grassley's using his whistleblowers in his investigation to expose all of these people who, for starters, came out of Grassley's committee going after yours truly. And this is all sets up the I went to prison so you won't have to book. And it talks about my legal woes. Then it focuses like a laser beam. If you don't know what it's like to go to prison as a guy who's 76-year-old for a misdemeanor in with 200 felons, hey, here it is. Read the book. I went to prison so you wouldn't have to. And so it's a good read. I think I do good books. And the thing you referenced, Death by China, was not just a book, but that was a movie that was in theaters and Netflix and all of that stuff. So I think if you're interested in this topic of weaponization, and you should be because they're coming for you, you should read the book. And I'll tell you what, it's like having been there and done that. Mondami gets elected. There's like a blue wave in Virginia. There's another one in New Jersey. First thing that I thought was like, hey, these people, if they get in power, they'll not only take our money, they'll put us in prison. They will do that. And so that's not an extreme thing to say. I get to say it because I went to prison for nothing other than to be in a Trump guy.
It's an extraordinary thing. I remember when it happened, you think, can this truly be happening in America? And with Steve Bannon as well. Let me just ask you, was there a moment when you thought that? It was like, I can't believe it, but I really am going to go to jail. And then you had to obviously decide, and I'm not going to cave. I'm not going to do what they want me to do.
No, the sad part is, Steve, I knew there was a good risk I'd go to jail. But I mean, here's the broader issue, and interestingly enough, my case is still on appeal, even though I served my time. There's no incentive for me personally to have my case on appeal. But in December 18th, they're going to hear oral arguments on the case. The underlying constitutional issue here is this, Steve. There's something called executive privilege that George Washington originated. And he basically says that, and the Supreme Court has since expounded on this, that in order for a president to make good decisions, he has to have candor and confidentiality. Those are the Supreme Court words in presidential communications, full stop. And what that means, as George Washington put it to Congress on the occasion of the Jay Treaty, is like, quoting Washington, I can no more order you legislators to come to the White House than you can order me, the president of the executive branch, to go to Congress. Okay. And that's what I was protecting. That's what I continue to protect. My case, if I lose it, will expose every current and future senior White House advisor, regardless of political party, to the risk of imprisonment. And they'll have to make the choice that I had to make, is simply this, Steve. It's like, do I honor my oath of office, defend executive privilege, and do the right thing for the country, or do I bend the knee and avoid prison? I made that choice. And I think what you're going to find out, this is what's also fascinating, is like there were two other guys who did exactly what I did, who were not prosecuted. So there's a question of, well, why weren't they prosecuted? Why was I? Who made the decision to pick me up with armed FBI agents at the airport rather than just allow me to make a phone call? And by the way, Steve, Grassley's office released these memos, which actually do the TikTok on the FBI raid of me. It's kind of like the Mar-a-Lago raid. And they had a dozen agents, Steve. Right, it's like Navarro leaves his residence at 9:10 with his fiance and proceeds. He arrives. It's like, what the F? I mean, these people are like, they should be out busting criminals. And they took 12 agents. And then we're seeing like these emails now that are being released between agents about how they're high-fiving because they got me. You know, it's like, really? So I went to prison so you won't have to. I'm hoping that people will really wrap their heads around this book, because, look, you got to know this stuff, folks, to protect yourself in this country and to get you motivated. It's like if you voted for Donald Trump and then went back to sleep thinking everything's going to be all right. No. This is like a daily fight with these son of a bitches. And there we have it.
And it's and that core thing that they wanted you to break your oath over, that was, just to be specific, that was your advice to the president on what?
What they wanted to talk to me about is events related to January 6th, and more broadly, the election itself. I, for example, had written a 3-volume report regarding election irregularities and fraud in the presidential election that to this day has never been refuted. And you can go to my website, by the way, to find a link to the book, but also this report, peternavarro.com, peternavarro.com. That's pretty easy. But the problem is that it's like pregnant. You're either are or you aren't. You know, you can't go and sit before Congress and let them kind of start taking you down any kind of slippery slope, asking you any kind of questions. It just doesn't work that way. And there's this policy that DOJ has maintained for 50 years, what's called absolute testimony immunity. And another thing I talk about in I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to is how when I was in the White House the first time around, I watched a lot of my colleagues get subpoenaed by the Pelosi Congress, and every one of them told them to go take a hike and on the basis of absolute testimony immunity. None of them got prosecuted. None of them got, there was nothing about that. And I was weaned on the notion that it's executive privilege is important and it's your duty to defend it. I had seen Yeah, Don McGahn defended. I'd seen Kellyanne Conway, Rick Dearborn, Rob Porter, whole bunch of people. And it was my duty to do that. So that's what I did. And the J6 thing was just a way of interfering in the next election. I mean, it just was. They're still trying to do that. And by the way, if we lose the House in 2026 and Hakeem Jeffries becomes House Majority Leader, like Nancy Pelosi performed, I mean, the subpoenas are going to fly, and
It's going to be all over again. Exactly.
It's going to be the same old bullshit.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I worked in 10 Downing Street. I was senior advisor to the Prime Minister. You're exactly right. I mean, there's so many things that if the whole thing was just open and published, nothing could work. I mean, it's just and in the end, you don't get good advice.
Did they have anything similar like that, Stephen?
No, because it's much less sort of there's just less there's no written constitution, for example. It's just much less kind of legal stuff around it. So I never saw anything like this, but I totally get the point. And it's an incredibly important principle. You want our leaders to have completely unfettered advice, and in the minute that you start to if you put in people's minds the thought that, well, one day this is going to be published or whatever, then you start to constrain what the leader hears, and that's a disaster for real world outcomes. I wanted to ask you just in the last few minutes, I mean, you've got to read the book, right? Because I want to really, people should, and I want to understand what it was actually like and all that. But my last question, really, Peter, is how are you now? What did the experience of being in jail do to you? I mean, you're back in the White House, which is the fantastic vindication. We love that. But how do you feel?
I think the book is an important lesson in discipline, and just being confident in your own self in whatever environment you wind up in. There's a fascinating story in the book, but besides all of the stuff that happens, I saved one guy's life while I was in there. There's with all sorts of crap going on, from the kitchen to the pharmacy and this, that, and the other thing. But there's also another story about this thing called the First Step Act, which was President Trump's signature piece of prison reform legislation in 2018. And I wind up in there for 4 months, effectively as an investigative reporter. I didn't like sit on my hands and cry and my face to the choir. I actually, I'm like a few weeks in, and I go, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. I get into it, and by the time I got out, I had the whole prison organized, figuring out what was going on. And now on the outside, I'm working with the new director of the Bureau of Prisons, who I had a hand in selecting for nomination, everything like that. And we're actually solving what I identified then in prison as a $5 billion problem. I mean, that's pretty damn good. You get your usual prison stories about, finding God or this, that, and the other thing, or reforming your life. It's at least not any of that. I went in there an honest man and came out an honest man. But in the meantime, I solved the problem in between that saved taxes, going to save taxpayers $5 billion. So that ain't bad.
I love it. That's amazing. And that's a great line. I went in an honest man. I came out an honest man. Honestly, thank you for the fight that you've shown. It's really... I
appreciate the time, Steve. And good luck to you in your endeavor. I would encourage everybody out there in the once great state of California that if you want to bring that state back, Hilton for governor is the way to go.
Fantastic. Peter, great to see you. Good luck with the book. We'll put all the links out there.
Right.
Hope to see you soon.
PeterNavarro.com, and the book itself to Amazon. You got it, brother.
Fantastic. See you soon.
Take care.
You see, I told you it was a great show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure you come back and join us for next week's episode of The Steve Hilton Show. Follow us on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Join my campaign for change in California, stevehiltonforgovernor.com, and we'll see you back here next week.